Hey mate, I just watched a video from Novice Lumberjack. He was touching on the turbocharging a chainsaw. Now it can be done, but not the way you think it can be done. Um, the reason being, I put this saw back together. It's just spare parts, crap saw. One thing you didn't touch on, mate, is you've got a valve for your intake. That's the piston. So as you suck in, the piston closes the intake, the skirt and the piston. So once you've sucked, it can pressurise the bottom. Seals, all the saws have metal pieces over the seals, so you can make them stronger. This side doesn't have one, but they can be modified. That is a pretty easy thing to modify, I imagine. Next one would be getting a turbo the right size. You don't want to go too big because a big turbo won't spool up. It's going to be the right capacity for the saw. So finding a small turbo, I don't think they exist anyway. So you have to make that. But the thing you didn't touch on is the transfer chambers and the exhaust. So that's Bob Ned said. It's not the right crank, but you get the idea. When your charge comes out the transfer chambers, if it was turbo, it'd blow the fuel and air straight back out of the motor. So it would never have anything left to go bang up the top. Now, it can be done, and it was done in 1946, at the end of World War II. In England, they made an aeroplane motor that going by a chainsaw, if you could pick the thing up, they had turbocharged and supercharged. It probably makes, if you had a 70cc saw, it'd be about 20 horsepower, which would be, that'd be fun. I love power. But the way they did it, they had a secondary valve. So you can see how the piston is now blocking the exhaust. You need to put something there to block the exhaust, so when your transfer opens up, the charge stays in the cylinder, so it can pressurise. Once the exhaust is shut, it can hold a full charge and go bang. Now what they did in World War II, if you want to watch the video, it's on another YouTuber called Curious Droid. He does a lot of history and stuff like that, but yeah, Curious Droid. I hope I'm saying that clearly enough. They've got a secondary sleeve, and the secondary sleeve isn't, you got the cylinder, then a secondary sleeve that moves opposite to the piston, so it would move up the piston, up the cylinder as the piston goes up, and it'd open and shut the intake and exhaust as required. And the way they did it, I've tried to draw it, but it's a bit hard. I need to watch the video. They have two teardrop shaped holes that would stay, that's completely shut, and as the cylinder moves over the bore, it start to open up the right timing, and eventually the cylinder the port would be fully open, but then it would shut off. So they worked out a way to make it extremely quick and more efficient by making a port that would be shut and in a split second be fully open, so it maximised the flow. And apparently it worked big time. It was so powerful that when they were putting it on the dyno, they broke the dyno, and also it set off the air raids because they thought there's so much noise, they thought the bombers were coming back in. Now the reason they cancelled, they did get a few planes going, was the fact that they said, nah, jet motors, we don't want nothing to do, two strokes. So we would have had it, we had more power out of them, but they were very complicated. So my idea would be if someone can lave up a saw and do stuff that I haven't got to do. So there's your crank. So what I do, I'll pull the crank out. Oh look, Chinese sort of fall apart easy. You'd want to have an offset bearing somewhere. So you got a certain amount of room for a bearing there. So you'd need to have to. So this is where it becomes very inefficient, where things start to break, because as Novice Lumberjack said, they're not designed. So someone would have to design the crank and everything from scratch. So you have to half that bearing, put another bearing close to the main bearing, but it'd have to be an offset bearing. So as the cylinder comes up, it also have to turn to open up the ports. But have to do that, or turn and up at the same time, and it'd have to be the right timing and all that. So if you watch the Curious Droid video, they got cogs and sprockets all along the side of the motor. I think it was a V16 or V20. I think it was a 27 litre motor, but all these cogs, and that causes it to be a bit not reliable at first, but they got it to work. But someone just said, nah, GMOs. But the power it was producing was phenomenal. But if you break it down to the same cc's of a chainsaw, I'm pretty sure it was about 20 horsepower out of 70 cc's. It's like, could you imagine that? And then putting NOS to it, like supercharged and turbo. But then could you even pick it up? But yeah, things like that, they keep me up at night. But no Slumberjack, I liked your demonstration. It was really good, mate. But yeah, if you look at that, the bottom of the center, this is a 52cc crank on a 58cc cylinder, so it's not going to where it should go, but you get the idea. But as soon as your charge comes in, it blows straight out. Be nothing left in the cylinder. Once it transfers close like that, you're not getting no more, but the flow of air is blowed out. You basically wouldn't gain nothing, so you'd have to have some way of stopping it. So it'd stop there and then blow the fuel and stuff in. So it'd be extra port basically, or extra valve, and that would make it work. Anyway, enough of my rambling. Keep your good work up, mate. Thanks.